The NFL teams preach family, but the players know that at the end of the day, this is a business. For the players, it's about earning the big bucks from amazing productivity. Some players happen to make it rain without pulling off a sweat. They are making more than they should. Here are the top 10 worst contracts in the NFL right now. At number 10, it's Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Christian Kirk. He will reportedly earn $72 million in his 4-year contract, $37 million of which is guaranteed. That figure and that type of contract are usually reserved for top-of-the-line elite receivers, let alone a journeyman and at best a wide receiver too. Now, Christian Kirk is not to be blamed for wanting to cash in on a general manager's inexperience. It's all part of the game in this business. But Kirk has shown flashes that he can be that elite receiver. His stats on the season so far in his opening 3 games, he's averaging 6 catches and has 3 touchdowns. But what would worry Jags fans was at his last outing, he was targeted 9 times and only managed 2 catches for 60 yards and 0 touchdowns. But Christian Kirk is only the tip of the iceberg when it concerns horrible contracts. At number 9, Taysom Hill of the New Orleans Saints, who's got a $40 million contract over 4 years with $10 million guaranteed. Is he a quarterback, a tight end, a wide receiver? Who knows? The Saints seem to think he is the ultimate utility player and a below average one at that. He's 32 and quickly descending in terms of production and overall skill. Even if he's with a pack of tight ends that are making more than $10 million annually, Hill just isn't the player you would want to invest such a figure on. He is featured in 3 games so far this season, scoring 1 touchdown on a rushing play. Here are his rushing totals: 116 yards from 12 carries. Does that sound like a $10 million a year player to you? Another contract that baffles the mind is from the quarterback of the Detroit Lions, Jared Goff, who comes in at number 8. The LA Rams reject is set to make $134 million in 4 years. He's a player that a team drafted at the number 1 overall spot in 2016 and was later traded for a much older quarterback, meaning that the Super Bowl winning Rams knew that there was no potential whatsoever in Jared Goff and that he wasn't, at the time, a player who would develop into a Super Bowl level quarterback. Goff is an average quarterback, and there's nothing horribly wrong with being average if you are being paid what you're worth. Clearly, the $134 million could have been better spent elsewhere, such as a world-class defensive end or a couple of extremely good cornerbacks, which the Lions desperately need. But no, the money justifies the pedigree and importance of the position. It's a shame the personnel don't live up to those standards. At number 7, an athlete who also is underperforming and being overpaid is Kenny Golladay, wide receiver for the New York Giants. Golladay is on a monster contract of $72 million for 4 years and has been a ghost of himself. He's literally disappearing week after week in this Giants offense. In 4 games, he has been targeted 6 times and has caught 2 balls for 22 yards. That's what $72 million will get you if you're the general manager of the New York Giants. What a catastrophe this contract is, and not only does it hurt the team, but it's actually turned Golladay into a laughingstock amongst people in the industry. He's become such a punching bag that you kind of feel bad for him, even if he's earning $72 million. It's a price that reflects what he has already accomplished rather than what he's currently producing. In his first 4 years in the league, Golladay managed to get over 1,000 yards receiving in 2 separate seasons. He was considered pretty darn good, but once he made his big money move, the talent, skill, and desire evaporated. It's sad to see talent flushed down the toilet. But not as sad as watching more money go to waste on this player at number 6, Ezekiel Elliot, running back for the Dallas Cowboys, who's on a $90 million contract for a 6-year duration. Elliott cashed right before his productivity started to decline, and it's evident in his stat line. This season, he hasn't rushed for more than 73 yards, and over 4 games, he's got a rushing average of 43 yards. So when you pay someone $10 million a year, you expect more than 43 yards per game. and you'd expect more when you're paying $15 million. So here's another case of a player who performed beyond his expectation and was rewarded with a big contract, only to fail in delivering the benchmark that the player had set. It's not just an issue of replication, it's a visible account of regression from someone who used to have an explosive burst, only to be a shadow of his former self. Elliot merits the money from past performances, but it's insane to think that he is a $90 million player when he can barely reach 80 yards on the ground. But not as insane as this next player. At number 5, it's David Njoku, tight end for the Cleveland Browns. Who? Exactly. Njoku is getting paid the big bucks in a contract valued at $54.75 million, with $17 million being guaranteed. The epitome of mediocrity in a position that is not as difficult to find someone to perform similar skill traits is getting a massive payday. He has spent 5 seasons with the team and averaged 39 catches, 459 yards, and 4 touchdowns per 17 games played. Now, I'll admit those numbers are fine, but they simply don't compare with the 17-game averages of other top-paid tight ends over the last 5 years. It is mind-blowing how much money Njoku is making, but not more than this next player. At number 4, it's the quarterback for the Washington Commanders, Carson Wentz. He is set to make $128 million, of which $66.5 million is guaranteed. That's a figure for an elite player, but unfortunately for the Commanders, they neglected to scout the player accurately, as Wentz is no longer a top 10 quarterback. Here's what he's done so far this season. He's thrown for 8 touchdowns and has 5 interceptions. In his last game, he threw 42 times and had a pass completion percentage of 59.52% for 170 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Those are not the numbers you expect from someone getting paid elite quarterback money. It's just too much to spend on someone who isn't reliable week after week, and Wentz falls into that category of inconsistent quarterbacks who can't be trusted. But a lot of ill-conceived trust was given to this player at number 3. It's wide receiver Michael Thomas of the New Orleans Saints. The Saints know how to be thankful to their players, and they have been more than patient with Thomas. Michael Thomas is on a $96.25 million 5-year contract. And again, it's because of what he has produced rather than what he will. It's another vicious cycle that general managers fall into when re-signing a player. Now, you can't fault those GMs, but you can certainly call them into question when they hand such a huge contract to a player who has played 10 games in the last 3 seasons. Michael Thomas is just another victim of a big payday ruining his on-field performances, or in Thomas's case, his on-field presence. He has missed so many games that in the 3 that he's featured this season, he's only managed to get 171 yards from 16 catches. Clearly money poorly spent. But not as bad as this next player. At number 2, it's Christian McCaffrey. Like Michael Thomas, McCaffrey is on a huge contract of $64 million for 4 years, and has also faced injuries that have kept him off the field for the last 2 seasons. McCaffrey has only played 14 games in 2 seasons and a quarter and hasn't been producing what is expected of him. He's a powerful runner who enjoys the game, but it's clear those injuries coincidentally appeared once he signed that huge contract. They can't move him because he's valuable, but then again, his value is diminishing due to his lack of on-field availability. And speaking of on-field availability, the number 1 worst contract in the NFL today hails from the offices of the Cleveland Browns. The presently suspended quarterback Deshaun Watson. The contract, $230 million for 5 years, all guaranteed. Despite not playing in a season and having been accused of sexual assault by over 20 women, he got a huge deal. Watson has 7 games left to serve from his 11-game suspension, which started when the season began. Not only does this look bad from a business point of view because you're getting a quarterback who won't play in practically 2 seasons, but you're inviting hatred to your organization from a person who was accused of assaulting women. This may be the worst contract in the history of sports. So who do you think has the worst contract in the NFL? And what is your opinion on our list? Please let us know in the comments below, but before you go, if you still want to watch some awesome NFL content like this, please watch the next video that will pop up on your screen.